Welcome, everyone. It's great to see everyone. We are coming off the tail end of our midwinter conference, which was very exciting in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was amazing to connect with cherished colleagues, to learn, to grow together, and just to experience a new world. Vegas was kind of like exploring a new world and the landscape of psychologists in, again, I guess the wild, wild west, so to speak, and bringing science to a space that maybe we don't think about the science practitioner showing up with all the lights and glitter and all of those great things. But I'm glad that we're here. And I want to welcome a wonderful colleague, Dr. Greg Pennington. He's going to be joining us in just a few. Before he does, because he's going to be the person that's going to share his imprint on legacy with us, I want to just say a few quick things, and then I'm going to scurry off and offer him the opportunity to share more with us. One thing I would love to remind you is that while we had our past conference, we have one coming up next year. So if you were not present, we are going to be in New Orleans, Louisiana, which was my designated choice. I think that's going to be an awesome experience for continued connection and purpose, and really thinking about, again, the imprint that we leave in different regions, because, again, we get to bring our presence to those regions and maybe stimulate interest in the work that we do. So a lot of beautiful opportunities to get connected. I will just say one or two more points, and then I want to pass it on. I'm very glad that in this February, it is Black History Month. I actually found out I had a few curious members, and we discovered I believe I'm the first African American female president that SCP has ever had. So obviously that is interesting. But it also keeps me on my toes to what on earth does this look like to navigate a space where I don't feel completely different, but how do you navigate this as someone who is trying to be curious and grow while also continuing to just be thoughtful of my presence here? I do want to also say happy Black History Month, but I just want to engage and re-engage all of you. Continue to stay connected. Bring friends. So I will say come, visit, invite. This is about community. It's about growth. But we also want to sharpen each other. We want critical thinking here. We want you to take away practical tools, resources, but it's also an opportunity to gain feedback and maybe even ask some questions that maybe you don't have. You can't pick someone's brain outside of here. Maybe you're isolated and maybe you're not in a space where you can talk to others. This is a great space where you can be plugged in. So anyway, I'm not going to keep blabbing. I'm going to turn it over to my amazing colleague, very esteemed, and someone who definitely leaves a mark of legacy in applied psychology and consulting psychology overall. Introducing Dr. Gregory Pennington. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Lacey, and thank all of you for showing up here. It's so much easier to talk when there's faces out there than it is a blank screen. So I'm glad you're here, and if you can do it, please have your video up. I won't be able to see all of you, but everyone on here, I think, just gets that much more engaged when you see real people, real faces there. And then for those of you who just cannot resist multitasking, I just want you to feel slightly guilty about multitasking, because, if you're trying to do multiple things, you're going to miss some things and we're going to miss you. So let me jump right in. I know a number of names and faces here, and if I haven't met you before, or if you don't think I remember you, believe me, and hopefully other people will attest to this. If you just connected with me on LinkedIn and say, let's get together, then I'm going to send you my Calendly link. Then it's going to be on you to find some time for us to get together. So please take that away as a follow-up opportunity. If I do what I was planning to do, I will get through 10 minutes or so. I think I have 5 slides, and those of you that are into research, that means how many minutes per slide, and can you pull it off? But that's my goal, at least, to get through these 5 slides. Hopefully, in that, it will have generated enough reactions on your part for you to say, hey, what about, let me go back to, that made me think of something. And it'll be doing the same thing to me because I'm trying to put together into a short period of time some reflection on 73 years of life. Because I do think it all started when I was in kindergarten. I didn't know what to call it, but I think it started when I was in kindergarten. So I want to share that, more focused in on my experiences with SCP and we've got a number of people that are overlapped with and continue to overlap with. So um, don't do any fact checking because the facts that I'm presenting are my recollections, which means that whether they're factually verifiable or not, it's genuinely true about what happened to me from my lens. So, but anyway, I want to give you some thematics. My reflection of it is not a history lesson. It's not going to end up in Wikipedia, but it is legitimately, this is what I think I've done, wanted to do, my experience and recollection of it. So I'm going to do 5 slides and so I won't be I'll be able I won't I'll see fewer of you. If you put something in the chat box, then we'll get back to them along the way. But certainly and take some pictures of the slides if you want to. They are more aesthetically exciting than they are information full, but it will help me be a little more organized in what I'm sharing with you. So can you all see that? Legacy of leadership, herding cats and dogs. So tell me, can you? Is that
Yes,
good?
Yes,
we can.
can
Better?
see it. Yep.
That's better. Okay.
Yep, I see it.
Okay. I hope I'm not losing the bottom of it. So legacy of leadership is actually a little humbling for somebody to say, for myself to say, talk about legacy of leadership, because then I'll get to this later. Who gets to call it a legacy? But if I said my memory or my connections, then that's easy. I thought again from a catchy standpoint, Mira Bronco with all your experience in marketing, herding cats and dogs just kind of generates some kinds of reactions and stereotypes. I'm just telling you in advance that leading or in a position of leadership with your colleagues, professional colleagues especially, it does feel like herding cats or dogs. And whether I'm being fair with cats or dogs, I'm just choosing that to say, in some sense, cats they're just so independent, right? So substitute cats from professional colleagues. They're just so independent. And then dogs, some of them depend upon the breed. They just want to make you feel good and, you know, reinforce you. And I mean, again, substitute instead of dogs, professional colleagues. But some dogs are alpha dogs too. So truth is trying to lead a bunch of professional colleagues. We're going to run into some people who just fundamentally say, I am so independent. There's no, if you jump up and down, that don't mean I'm jumping up and down. And then we're going to run into some dogs out there that just need to bark and leave their mark in places they choose to lead them. So that's just a general. It is a challenge leading professional organizations and leading peers. And I'm just focusing on that. I have some experience in corporate settings, but this is with SCP. One of the things I want to tell you, and I was president twice. I was president in 2008 and 9, and then came back 2016, 2017. So some stories in there. I will always start off with this why for a couple of reasons. Because just fundamentally, what's my purpose? Put in different words, but why do you want to do this? And someone approached me, probably Rodney Lohman or Randy White, one of those that said something, you should join SCP. I said, why? And I'm probably not that emphatically, more nicely. So why should I join SCP? And I'll attribute this to Randy. He said you should join this community of learners. And I thought, what does that mean? And can you really pull it off? So my first time coming to SCP, as I recall, was roughly 2000 or so. This picture captures a lot of it from the why standpoint. Like, why would I want to join this organization that by all appearances look like a bunch of old fogies with stogies? You know, even you said learning community, I got that. But if I did the sniff test and looked around, there wasn't a whole lot of people that looked like me. A number of dimensions, just visual surface as well, but also how you approach psychology, a number of things. But how would I fit in might be another way I was probably unconsciously framing it. But I really did spend a lot of time saying, why would I want to be a part of this? What was clear to me was that from a leadership standpoint, and if I say leadership, I mean roughly the intentional exercise of effort to influence and impact others, to do something that's intended. That's kind of the long-winded part of it, but that's what I was looking at, not title, but what kind of impact would I have on it? I'm also telling you that I was reasonably clear about who I was then and am now as a person, including strengths as well as developmental areas slash weaknesses. So I was clearly in my mind, uh, not just clearly in my mind, but feedback would say I'm a pretty good listener. Also, feedback, and in my mind, I would say I'm fairly conflict avoidant. So I'm looking for some place that will take advantage of me being more of a listener first than a dictator. And I'm looking for a place that's going to be small enough. I just talk about it in terms of right sized enough that whatever conflict comes up, it's in a manageable arena, manageable size. Uh, I want it to be right sized in the sense of whatever intentional effort I put out, I can see a direct connection between what I did and the ripple effects of that. So right size, SCP, at the time, probably still at the time, it's probably was 1,000 members. Over the years, it's been 900 to 1,200 members. Conferences, 200 to 350, somewhere in that. So that's what I mean about right size. I thought, I might be able to do something here in this kind of setting. So that was in my mind about joining this organization. And I knew that I was I would stay longer if I had some direct impact on shaping it and changing it. The other importance about this image for me, and I'm offering it to you as well, this fountain. When we had that first conference I went to, which I think was in San Antonio, I looked around and I said, "There's not as much chocolate out here in the room as I would like it to be. Chocolate like looked like me skin size." And I thought, okay, let me go. After the keynote address, there was a little break, and I thought before we start up again, let me go and tap on the shoulder those who looked a little bit more like the chocolatey skin that I have. And I said, "What are you doing during the break?" And they said, "Oh, I don't know. What is?" So can you just meet at the fountain out there? So I tapped on shoulders, tapped on shoulders. Then during the break, we had a bunch of folks. We're in, I say San Antonio, Texas, because some a larger percentage than usual of Latinas because of geographically where we are. So there are a number of us sitting around the fountain, and probably somebody said, "So what now?" And I said, "I don't know. I just want to see who's going to come." My impression was, and my feeling was that the murmuring started then. Like, what's going on? What? But it was a visual kind of representation of some differences, maybe, and some future vision around adding to those old fogies with stogies. Because I never been then or now one to kick. I'm generalizing, so record if you want. I'll back it up. I'd say it the same way in other settings, but generalizing people who had a lot of experience, generalizing that tended to be more men and also tended to be a little bit more insulated. Learning community, yes, but over time, you create this in crowd. I'm on the in crowd now, and I have to work intentionally not to be so insider that I'm doing what I didn't want to join years ago. So why? Folks at the fountain, that was real important to me. I would also tell you, I'm jumping around on my timeline. Vicky Vanderveer, she keeps saying she doesn't remember this, but Vicky Vanderveer had this workshop some time ago, and it was about crafting your why. And I had been thinking in my head, this is why I do things. And what I took from Vicky's workshop was it's helpful to think it through, to be able to articulate it. It's even more helpful and valuable to make it public and make it visible so people can hold you accountable. If you listen to my second time around as president, part of my the gavel passing, I really talked about my why statement. If I have enough time left, I'll read it to you again. So a big category for me was the why. Second one, on my second term, and I'll say the takeaway for me on the first term was really putting in print. I talked about my why in that instance, but I joined also because I had this sense that the membership of the division genuinely believed in the value of differences and understood the dynamics of differences. We just had not put it in print at the time. So if there was one thing I want to pull out and hold on to was being a part of putting in print and concretizing, that value proposition about diversity. And some of it is visual. in some of its terms of race, ethnicity. But I would also say it struck me then and now that that diversity was also throughout the whole career of being an applied psychologist. We do a much more purposeful job about engaging early career people than other divisions that are similar to us. Okay, so that's the first timer around. Years later, and I'll get to this. I'm trying to articulate it in a way that some people might say, "Oh yes, I sort of heard that or I remember that," without necessarily calling people by name. But so 8 years later. 7, 8 years later, those dogs, I would say the dogs part of that, herding cats and dogs. There was a rumor things weren't happening as smoothly and efficiently as they could have been among leadership in the division. Not really a surprise, just because we're psychologists doesn't mean we apply it to ourselves, right? So there was an opening and a need to fill an incoming president. I was finally convinced when someone said, you have the social capital to come in and say some things that other people might not say and be heard in ways that other people might not hear. So I say this picture is up here because I got a gavel. I guess I may have gotten one twice, but my second time around, some people I don't know if they're on the phone now. If she is, D. Ramsel, but it's probably some other folks, gave me this in the at the conference, and hopefully you see it's a fish, right? So my theme that time around was, I'm coming back. I only have a whole lot of t I don't have a whole lot of time to do this. I got a year and a half instead of 3 years. I'm usually patient, quiet guy. My developmental need coming back is to get to the point, Greg, and say what you mean and get it done. So I leaned into this metaphor here of saying to the leadership team, either fish or cut bait. We got a lot of stuff lined up here, and a lot of stuff been lined up on the hook for a long time. And this year and plus that I have, just tell me, what are you going to do by the time this term is over? And if you tell me that it's going to take more and more years than that, then I need to know what's the chunk of that you're going to do by the end of this year. So they gave me this, what I thought was cute, and it's in the house on the wall somewhere as a reminder, Fisher cut bait. Okay. So let me, this is what I wanted to say this too, and this may, some of you may know this, but I'm just a quick synopsis of some key things I would say for me over the years that were leadership moments for me. I do think crafting the diversity statement was one of those, just doing and it wasn't really heavy lifting, I think. I think it was just focus and I do think from a leadership standpoint was taking advantage of if I'm the chair of the diversity committee at the time, I wasn't president at the time, this was right the year before, but if someone gave me this space with the assigned accountability, responsibility, privilege slash power to do it, what are you going to do with it? So I pushed, I don't mean push like resistance, but push like something that's sitting there in neutral. So let's, the time that I'm here, we're going to move this thing forward. Variations of that from then to now, but I take a lot of pride in being a part of, concretizing that. The second one is more complicated, more nuances of it, but most of you hopefully have heard about the Hoffman Report and APA, the allegations and all the stuff around how much APA was supporting interrogations, slash torture and so I put it here because I took on this role. Remember I said about conflict avoidance, being clear about that, but also being clear in my mind that what was the mission and what's the added advantage of SCP. Some of you may know that we self-nicknamed ourselves the Catalyst Organization. And yeah, Catalyst Division, excuse me. And so what did that mean what did it mean to me? I wasn't around when it was coined, but I took it to mean that we can do in APA what we say we do with clients, which is consult to them. And that's why I wrote it in terms of position or process. And in my notes, in the emails, and Bernardo and Vicky and others go back around the same period of time. This is that pressure point between with some of those dogs and me. I'm both cat and dog. But some of those dogs saying, we need to take a position. We, SCP needs to take a position. Part of me, I'm confessing to you all, I didn't want to get into the heat battle of draw this position, which means more heat's coming our way, meaning my way. And, am I going to cry when that conflict comes? And I'm going to avoid that. So I thought, well, re in reality, what do we need when people get polarized? Well, what I think we need and what we were fundamentally equipped to do, and then personalizing what I knew I was fundamentally better equipped to do was to say, how will you decide? How did you get to that position? How do you get people to figure out whether that's real or not real or right or not wrong? How do you get people mobilized to say, what do we do next time? That's what I mean by positional process. Other presidents take different slants on that. I just take a lot of pride in saying all the stuff that came up that wasn't planned, and for now until forever, stuff will come up that's not planned. I personally, in that role and out of that role, was real clear with myself that what I know we can do is help people think about the most productive way of approaching this. Does that land on the position? That's somebody else worry about that. We'll debate that later. Okay. Third one, stepping in and up to round two. I sort of hinted at that before about, being literally being called back in because of some other things that are happening, someone stepping out of a planned role and some reported kinds of tensions and among colleagues and so forth. So just stepping in to the mess. So I cleaned up this line from the first draft stepping into the mess and up to round two. And I say round two, double entendre, second time in this chair, in this position, but also what's the more direct round in terms of combative part about it? And I do think that was pushed then from my perspective, at least like what are we doing or not doing that we should be doing differently? And I would say this last one, which is really representative of what I would like to say has always been true, is building and leveraging, connections. From a leadership standpoint, I who was self-described as more thematic, big picture, really did benefit from Stuart Cooper, who came before me, that was, much more in the history and the details. Um, Steve Kincaid was, I think, president-elect with me. When I came back the second time, John Finnick was past president, and D. Ramsell was president-elect. So the connectivity around the leadership. But again, for me, if I've met you before or if I meet you going forward, just trust that I'm trying to figure out good to get connected with you. And, from what you just said, you need to meet William Jordan and how we can get people together. That just expands the capability of so I know a lot of people in Division 13. I know a fair amount in APA, and but my name comes up. Don't tell my mother I'm being a little conceited on this, but a lot of people know my name, right? And that's notable, but I don't take it for granted because I don't know everything has been said about me, but I appreciate and it enhances my leadership impact by being connected and most of those being positive connections. Those that don't have positive connections with me is because they just haven't talked to me enough. I hope y'all laugh. I only see a couple of faces. Thanks, William. I can see you. Okay, got it right. All right, one other one because I went back over notes when Lacey said, come do this," and there was something in there about what are some key lessons in terms of the things to do differently that will fit in that category of legacy. And then after I get to the slide, I'm going to ask you for questions and reactions and drop these slides from you. I really, really do think, Vicky, thank you again, again, again. So many of us have heard about Simon Sinek and others about the why. And every time I've done a workshop and I ask people, do you know the importance of why? Most of the hands come up. Then I say, how many of you have written your why or thought about it? Fewer hands come up. And then I say, how many have put it in print? Fewer hands from that. And then how many have it posted in a public area? Still fewer. So I'm just telling you, uh, craft your why and make sure it isn't something that was generated by ChatGPT or somebody else. Um, this second one, both in my coaching and otherwise and personally and at home, I just got real clear along the way that I'm working to improve rather than prove. I say that in terms of what do I say when I was corporate and had at the probably the most, maybe I had 7 or 8 people working for me, and some of them were not in my subject matter expertise role. And so I just was really clear that if I ask some questions, I'm not trying to prove I'm the boss. I can ask questions that really are fundamentally driven by, yeah, help me understand that better. Well, how did you come to that conclusion? Why don't you think about this? So my offer to you as a leader that's going to leave some degree of legacy, people doing something that they can do a straight line back to having benefited from hearing from you, is that those questions about how to improve, those questions coming from a space of how to improve rather than to prove, really helps people become that much more effective in them of themselves. Third one, lift them up. If you're family oriented, the family legacy, family order relationship, I'll give this to you. I'm the middle child of 5 sons. My mother said, don't think you're better than anyone else. She probably said that, realizing that by certain dimensions, I was, quote, better than others, but as a lifelong lesson in the sense of whatever gift that you think you have is no real gift unless you use it for other people as well. So, but lifting up others, and you can think of tangible ways. And in the work setting, I just want to make sure I'm giving credit to Vicky Vanderveer. I want to make sure I'm giving credit to that's that lifting up part. I alluded to this other one before, leveraging your strengths. Um, Whether that's just self-insight, not whether or it includes self-insight, it includes assessments we give to others. All the leadership programs I've done, I've taken these instruments too, and I'm amazed that we psychologists give instruments that we haven't taken. Some of them we give instruments that we designed, but have we taken them and have we used them? So I'm real clear about my strengths. It's a little bit contradictory on one level for those of you that are coaches in leadership development about can I how much more development can I give you? And I'm just saying to you at 73, I can see a little bit of me when I was back at 5 or 6, right? So I'm not replacing, and one argument is you can spend some energy trying to replace. I've just chosen to spend energy leveraging my strengths, being clear enough about them to do that. So I listen, I connect. I told you that before. A companion piece of that is taking advantage of your weaknesses. I used to say develop your weaknesses, but I was saying that to coaching clients. We can talk about strengths or we can talk about weaknesses in practical terms for me, and I'm offering to you. If I know about my weakness, like details is my weakness, how do I take advantage of those weaknesses? So I'm going to get somebody around me that's a little bit more detail oriented. Um, I don't want them to get stuck in the weeds, know that concept, stuck in the weeds. So call me in when you feel like you're stuck in the weeds. I can see the patterns for you on the conflict avoidant part. Like, I mean, if you really come at me too directly, I'm gonna tear up. If it's in my right eye, I'm really feeling hurt and you know I don't know, second guessing and sad. If it's coming out my left eye, you're ticking me off. So just read the tears correctly. But my point is about the conflict part. Very seriously and genuinely, uh, I know how I react with conflict, which actually translates into me being that much more purposeful about. Let me understand where you're coming from. Let me make sure I've done my homework. Let me understand how we're going to make this final decision. And so it's a different flavoring about conflict. But if I have to go your point versus my point, or you have more power than me, then I just know I'm not as effective there. And then the last one, as much confidence as I have now. I really do think that leaders that are leaving some legacy or somehow or another figuring out how to let someone else call your name, right? Um, and there's a quote on Black History Month recognition. Langston Hughes, one of his poems starts with "Build your temples for tomorrow, strong as you know how, and stand on top of the mountain, free within yourself." So, do you feel good about what you've done? If that's true, then just feel clear and confident about that. Let someone else name the building in your honor. Let someone else, say this was worthwhile. Just build the temple that you can. Um, Another quote for me is, and this one is one of these things that people attributed to different persons. Um, I was in Seattle and I wanted to use this quote and I had one source that said it came from a Native American, and I said, let me double check that. So one source says this quote comes from the Native American chief whose name I can't pronounce it in the native tongue, but it's the English translation of his name is Seattle. So I'm in Seattle. I think I want to use this quote, but I want to know where it came from. Then I found that it was Chief Seattle or some how you pronounce it. The quote goes roughly like this: we do not simply inherit the past from our ancestors. We also borrow the future from our children. Okay. So, yeah, there's a past and legacy and all the conversations and connotations that go along with that. But that notion that I'm doing something that should last forever, but whether it lasted forever, I'm going to be gone, right? So, but I'm conscious of that. So, last thing, here's my this is my Vicky Vanderveer inspired why statement. It's only been tweaked a little bit in the last 10 years. I could do an hour a day or a week peeling it apart. Hopefully, you can peel it apart as well. I live my life between memories and dreams, not one over the other, but a blend between the two. I look to the past to remember where I'm from. I look to the future to remind me I'm not yet done. The gifts God gave to me, I give to you. I want to lift you up, not let you down. I want to make a difference in what you feel, think, and do. And some of you may know this, but I'm an ever emerging artist. So the drawing is my drawing, and the drawing is a picture of me probably around the time I wrote this, Vicky. And then I thought, how would I age over time? So I put a little more aging in it. So written a while ago, and it's me really kind of reaching forward to what lies ahead for me, and hopefully there's some momentum that was already behind me. Okay, last slide, because this is what I do. If I haven't said this to you in AP in an SCP, then believe me, I'm going to say this. I learned this along the way. SCP, part of its draw and value proposition is that we create this community of learners, and I say community. So however many people know my name, I don't think that's a big deal, as big a deal if I'm the only one who has that degree of visibility and puts in that amount of effort of saying, "Oh, have you been here before? Welcome here. What are you doing? How do you do?" That's how Lacey and I met. Lacey's sitting at a table. I'm exaggerating this to make it more humorous. Lacey's sitting at a table in the plenary room by herself and looking all lonely. I don't know if that's true. I'm inferring this. And I'll pull up and say, "Hey, can I sit here with you? Is this your first time?" So we had a conversation, and now Sister Girl is like president. Okay. So this is my question to everyone I meet, and along the way, wherever stage you are in life journey, SCP and otherwise, are you as engaged as you want to be? And if you sit in the corner, like I would have been in elementary school as an introvert, and you're fine and comfortable with that, then that's you're in the right spot. But if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, why do they do that? Why don't they do this thing?" Then when people said that to me when I was in president, like we should have a position, we should do this, and we should take this stance. I said, why and how do you think that? And then I would always end it with saying that, so what are you, I know what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? And an unusually predictable percentage would say, nothing. I just want you to think about it. I want you to know. And I would thank them and go on and do what I was going to do anyway. But if you want to get engaged and do it in a way that makes sense for you. So I'm dropping out. Stop sharing. All right. So tell me what y'all got out of that and where do you want to go from here? And I don't know how we got organized this, you all. Do people just jump in or they got to raise their hand? What's the deal? So I just want to hear people talk other than me.
I think we can just do the hand so it's not again
Okay.
a wild, wild west. That
Okay.
way we can recognize people in order.
All right, let's go, y'all. We got 15 minutes.
So I'm going to defer to others. I always have my own thoughts, but I'm going to make some room for others to speak.
Mung has a question in the chat.
Hi, sorry, I'm navigating my system. I can't see if y'all can see me, but thank
Yes.
you. This is so wonderful. I'm so grateful for your generosity. Um, just a curiosity, is there any particular decisions or experience that you've had and looking back now that you are glad that you did, that you're grateful that it happened?
Oh yeah, I mean, I really am. So there's probably a number of those. One in no particular order, but going back to the slide, I really am proud of focusing in on process rather than position around something as complicated as Hoffman report and all the pieces that surrounded that. One because it wasn't just me. So part of that response would have gone like this. If someone said that we, meaning SCP, should take a stand, take a position. So from a very logical standpoint, I said, well, how do we get to the we? Do we survey 300 people, or is that a decision by the executive committee? What data do we base it on? So the detailed people in SCP, would have sent, the documents but, it's just so much stuff going on in there that I thought it was the right thing to do from my perspective of challenging people who said we should take a position, which probably meant they were probably one of those dogs, right? Or one of those cats that we should take a position, meaning we should take the position that I think we should take. And so if they thought they needed to bring it to me in that role as president, then I guess in reflection, Meng, I was saying that yes, me as president, I've been gifted with this privilege to orchestrate all this information, and I certainly am not going to do it just because one person said do it. And I'm not going to, for my conflict avoidant piece, I'm not going to go out there and say, yeah, we should do it this way because they certainly did this. And then someone says, did you read this document? I'm not getting in that position. So from a personal standpoint, it was clean and clear for me, but also from an organizational standpoint of how can we demonstrate um, the process and the effective way, the most process and effective way, not just for the Hoffman report or incident or period, but going forward. So that certainly stands out for me, and in a lot of ways. And I'm proud I went back the second time. It was like, okay, my nice guy version would have been people liked me slash loved me from the first, presidency. So can I go up from there? You know? So I'm proud, and I said this to the people that are asking me that to do it, that okay, that means I got to be much more direct and much more confrontational. That's what the organization needs, and arguably that's what I need as well. And then it still fit in the category of these were people that were colleagues, or our colleagues. So I had relationships with people already. And so now I was saving in client situations. Um, for the nice guy, nice women, nice people that I work with as leaders, and they say, "Well, I'm doing this, that, and others." At some point, those in coaching engagement, I'll say, "So, what do you do with all this privilege that you built up?" People believe you. They know you're advocating for them. They know it's not your agenda. They trust you. And then legitimately, you should look in the mirror and say, so what do you do with it? If not you, and if not now, why you? So I would say those two, kind of reiterating, Ming, those two. But appreciate the question.
Any other
Don't
thoughts or
overthink it, y'all.
questions? Any other thoughts? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. So I don't. Okay. Yes, I think Bernardo. Are you raising your hand?
Sure. I'm not an introvert, I guess. So even though I think I'm going to be quiet, it's hard. Um,
Go,
yeah.
Bernardo.
Yeah. Hey, no, man, come on, be nice.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I have a quick question. What do you think? You talked about your the past, legacy and your suggestions. What do you see as the future, current and future imperatives
For
for the
me,
society? No, for the society. What do you
oh,
think is important to do, think about, address, and be as
yeah.
challenging as you can, please?
Yeah, so one of them that I would say right off the top of my head is to really intentionally manage this multi-generational profile we have. And so what I call years ago fogies, old fogies with stogies, there was a heavy load on 50-year-olds and up, and then maybe an occasional 20-year-old. I don't know what the distribution is now, but from t 20 years ago to now, we just got more and more increased mixture of people at different generations. And in some ways, and I'm not in the formal leadership role now, but I do think it's a valid point, intentional point to say, what does it look like when you have people across 4 or 5 different generations in an organization? And then how does that parallel the clients that we serve, individual and organizational one, what's happening in that arena? I think that's one challenge. I think another one that's even a little more subtle is all the things that we know are differentiators about SCP in my language, the learning community, the right sizing, and so forth. And then the tension between that of being inclusive, so how large and complex can we be and still feel inclusive and connected? Some organizations get to a certain size and they both professional and secular and non-secular, but churches come to mind now. Churches get to mega churches, then someone says we got to spin off because it can't cap. So if growth is inevitable, and that's been Vicky and others been here longer than me, I think we've had over the years conversations about uh, could we grow to be a thousand at the conference? Could we grow to be 5,000? And it isn't could we, it would be what would be the cost of that? Mission wise of building this community would suggest there should not be an arbitrary cap to that. So I do
Mhm.
think that's another part of it, Bernardo. Can we, as the interest in applied psychology grows and the funnel that feeds into that grows, how can we still serve this mission and maintain the culture part of it? Because I think that's really is a really, really valuable differentiator from what we differentiate. I don't mean like a competing way, but you go to this store for some things, you go to this store for those things. And so what is it that people come to us for that we can
Mhm.
maintain and grow? I don't know. If I say grow, it's like that's the target. The target really is, can we serve those persons who are interested in applying psychology in a certain way. So in some
Mhm.
ways, the challenge framed around growth in a numerical sense is a little bit distracting. Uh, if there are people who want to do this, it should be our mission to figure out how to get it done. And that sort of overlaps and not mutually exclusive, but I think it's time to do that. Another tangible part, and I say this out of ignorance, but I don't know the rhythm of doing rhythm from SCP of doing strategic planning.
Mhm.
So, and
Mhm.
if it's not
Been a
canon,
while.
say it again, Bernard. I'm sorry.
Been a while.
Yeah, so if it's not canonized, and then and certainly people would argue now with I learned from Vegas, not VUCA, but Bonnie. But if you haven't taken that into account, if we traditionally did it every 5 years, then intentionally, what should we be doing? Is it every 3 years? So I think that's a challenge too. Who's thinking longer term and broader terms about the
Yeah.
division? So,
Can I ask you a quick follow-up?
mhm.
Just on the two first things you said. I'm wondering because we didn't get into the substance of it, and maybe this isn't we don't have the time right now, but I think there's a tension there as we grow, as we serve the needs. There's also the content of what the field is. I think there's a
Yes.
responsibility to think about what is this field as a field of psychology, I think of it as. And so I'm wondering your perspective on that. How do you see managing that tension between serving a broader set of people with different types of education, perspectives, ideas about psychology or consulting psychology, and also, in that management of the multi-generational, also valuing and maintaining some of the threads that make us who we are at
Yeah,
a level. I mean, you kind of alluded to that, we
yeah,
feel a certain way, but then changing that is necessary to increase inclusion and diversity and to include
yeah,
more people. So,
yeah,
but I'm thinking about
yeah,
it as a field, like,
yeah.
practice and thought and
Yeah. No, just a couple of quick bullet items. I think and someone said this before, the Society of Consultant Psychology was drifting into the Society of Coaching Psychologists.
yeah.
So being clear about that and what that means. I am absolutely sure that at one of our conferences years ago, someone came and said, "Have you ever thought about certifications for coaches?" And then I'm overgeneralizing, but the general response was, PhDs, you don't want to be certified." I am convinced that that person was either the founder of ICF or
Mhm.
in the mix of that.
Yeah.
So we have claimed things by virtue of being psychologists. I'm using that as an example, and it's just going off in a different. This is not a slam on ICF because I think there's some quality things in there, but it's also a generational thing now where early career people and early transitioning people in age but changing the profession, they literally come. They go to they generalizing. Some of those will go to PSYOP because they know they can find some jobs.
Mhm.
We value coming to SCP because you find some relationships. Now I can't buy a house because I can't afford it. My mom and daddy said you can't live here forever. I got to get a job somewhere, right? So that's one of those concrete integrations of, what does that younger generation need that we have not provided and maybe we should think about providing. Um,
Mhm.
and then I mean, there's other pieces like that are more on the tactical specific side that I would say. And I guess another thought would be, personalize this. I've been privileged to, I probably have presented something at SCP for 20 years, right? Now, I don't know if this is true, and I hope nobody's just gifting it to me. I'm just clear now that I'm getting a little tired. I don't mean physically tired. My presentation get a little tired and predictable. And the space is beginning to be, jumbled. So there are probably some structural things like how do we decide? I'm not blaming this on conference planning committee. I just want to give some details of it. Um, do we actually, I talked with someone who just finished their dissertation last week who took me up on that offer of get on my Calendly, and they gave me a little snippet about their uh, dissertation. I asked them about posters, and I forget what they said, but the point was that it just reminded me that we certainly have not routinely had a poster display at SCP conference.
Mhm.
So there are little things like that that um, we might want to tweak and purposefully say, well, you don't have to be X, Fogey and Stogie, to be
Mhm.
in these positions of it. So okay. I see
Thank
Mira's
you.
hand. I'm sorry. Thanks, Bernardo. Mira.
Hello. Um, First of all, just love, of course, the intentionality always. You took Lacey's vision of legacy and put it all over your slides. And I don't know how long it took for you to think through. It would have taken me like hours to think through. Maybe it took you way less, but either way, that is a contribution. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
putting that together. And so, um, my question for you is, what do you see as our greatest future potential impact as consulting psychologists?
As a division or as consulting psychologist?
As consulting psychologists.
Yeah, so no prioritizing or preset answer. I do think applying psychology to the political process is, and arguably, if not the greatest, but certainly a huge, opportunity. And I don't mean just the diagnosis of leaders, but the whole process of persuasion and it's just a number of things, but the political, process. And, I grew up from psychology standpoint saying you got to apply psychology to family, to schools, to work, to play. I don't literally remember anyone saying, sometimes we'll say systems now, but it's easy to fall back on systems and think about that as, I don't know, manufacturing processes or organizational processes, but to literally call it out as the political process, I think is a huge, huge opportunity. The AI continues to be that, opportunity. APA had a strategic planning session a few years ago, and they asked these leaders, what should we be similar to what should we be planning for? This was probably 8 or 9 years ago. So I was at this table and I thought, this is such a yawner. People were saying kind of the obvious things. And I said, I think we might want to be planning ahead for who's going to be the psychologist to the robots. And the old fogies and stogies. When I say stogies, I include women who smoke cigars. But they said, "This is crazy. What are you talking about? You mean the people programming robots?" And I said, "No, the robots themselves. I mean, we have psychologists for dogs. You know, Maybe so. Anyway, I'm just saying that as an example, both thinking outside the box, but very literally continuing to have the impact we've been talking about and having in the space of AI and other technological pieces along the way. And then, so those are the two that stand out for me most. I do think more from the applied standpoint. And I don't know, some other historians would say more clearly, when do we claim to be the catalyst division, but that opportunity of minimizing the distinctions across the divisions and the disciplines, and then as consulting psychologists, getting us back to uh, what's the integrative piece about that. So when I was on the committee for the exploratory committee for applied psychology, I think it was named, and it was trying to articulate gap and other things. And I thought, I knew from a historical standpoint, maybe some of you know this as well, that in the beginning, there were two divisions of psychology, research and applied. And so if we were able, takes a whole lot of effort to get there, but if we were able to get back there, then that might occasion people saying, well, if take psychology and how would you use that for the Winter Olympics and getting those athletes to go there? And yeah, you call it sports psychology, but it's you still got to rely on physiology. You still got to rely. So that to me is an interesting piece about catalyst division. And there was a point in time where we knew, I forget, this is how I try to articulate it, the percentage of members of one division who have membership in other divisions. So that cross-fertilization of ideas in both ways. And it was a note of pride for Division 13 to be substantially more likely to have members who were not only members of other divisions, but active in other divisions. And president of 17 this year, and 2 years later, I'm 14. And so that could be a tactical way of saying that we mean SCP, fundamentally are saying, I think we fundamentally are applied psychologists. And because we have experimental, we have sports, we have education, we have and so continuing on that and maybe figuring out how to be even more purposeful. We sort of traditionally, I was on CODA, a committee on divisions and APA relations, and then this exploratory, and so I think the number of people in SAP that are on different committees like that is probably greater than we generally know because we don't publicize it anywhere. But I don't know, well, Lacey, you're incoming president. I'm not putting this on you, but I it would be interesting to find out what's that cross-fertilization now. It would be additionally interesting to figure out in our current mission statement, is there anything that touches upon being this catalyst? That our purpose, our mission, our impact is to help psychologists, whatever your allegiance from an academic standpoint is, we're the ones that go out and say that, yeah, that's psychology, and so is this, and so is this. But what's the issue we're trying to tackle? And how do we pull all that together? I think that's, a real interesting and valuable impactful challenge we can make. And then the last one I'll start with this is continuing to take early career folks here because whether they end up being consulting psychologists, I just know. And Ryan, I saw Ryan on here when Ryan and I did a breaking into consulting session in APA. Allegedly, people were sneaking in. Allegedly, they had bouncers trying to keep people out, and so there's an interest in what does this mean? And I'm putting this in this discussion around early career in particular. So if we're purposefully um, increasing visibility with undergraduates and graduate students and soon to be graduate students about in addition to doing therapy, you could do these things. Whether they came to SCP or they went somewhere else, that's all in the big ethos of psychology. So um, it's almost I'm at a leadership conference away from home, but it's just down the street. So I don't have any household duties now. So I can stay as long as y'all want to stay, but I just want to recognize that we're planned for at the end of the top of the hour. But if it's possible, Lacey, then I'll certainly stick around, continue conversation.
Awesome. I'm just going to add a touch point or two while a few people here, some people may need to drop off. And then if there are other thoughts, we can certainly jump back in. So just a few announcements. Continue to stay plugged in. If you are not signed up for our listserv, we have a lot of announcements that come through our newsletter about other events. This can be maybe community opportunities to connect with others. This could be educational offerings. Sometimes we have workshops or ongoing series. We would love for you to be a part of them. And we also have information on internships, and I'm hoping that some of my research grants will be back this year. We took a little bit of a pause, and those are offered to doctoral students, graduate, and bachelors for senior papers, as well as people who are doing program evaluation who may not be in school currently. So you'll see more updates on that again, and we will be having our diversity, equity, inclusion cohort come back again. So if you're interested in service learning projects and making a mark on the field of consulting psychology, that will be back, except this year, instead of 12 months, it'll be in a 6-month cohort with other peers and opportunities for connection. Other than that, because I want to pass the mic in case there are any other thoughts or questions, I will check in on that APA data. I believe we have all those demographics, so we'll look into that. But I appreciate everyone's time and continue to stay plugged in, continue to engage. And you can always reach out to myself or Dr. Pennington. But I'm going to look back to you, Greg. I think
Yeah,
someone
no,
has a
so here's
question.
yeah, seriously, if you want to stick around, I'll stick around. If I haven't connected with you, if you're not linked in with me as a one, the twos and threes and so forth don't count. But then please do so. But if you do so, let's just both be intentional about let's find some space to talk directly, not just be a LinkedIn number. But yeah, but anything else you want to share, I'll gladly stick around for a few more minutes. So.